Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mystic Raven. All right, guys, so I'm running a little late. Real life things that happens, and I do have to apologize ahead of time because, unfortunately, I didn't charge my phone. So if you guys if I see comments, I will not be able to reply because my phone is dead. And I'm on my PlayStation 4. And there's no way for me to open up a chat window on this platform. It stinks. So I apologize in advance for me not being able to actually interact with my viewers today. But I do want to do a series starting today called Thinking Like. And basically, one of my viewers made a very good point that I need to help players instead of trying to bitch about them, criticize them, so on and so forth. And I do agree with this viewer. He even put it in such a way that he used me as the demonstration, which was actually excellent the way he did it. And I have total admiration for this person, because the one thing I find that we do is we become the very thing sometimes we hate. And for me, it's people who with misconceptions in this game, because I don't think a lot of people reach out and try to embrace what Elder Scrolls really offers us. But even I can get caught up in some sort of elite fascist mentality where I think I know everything. And really, I don't want people to think that, because that's not what I ever want this channel to be about. I want this channel for players to explore options and how to get around and adjust their builds towards their playstyle. That's what I like to promote. But sometimes what we fail to realize is what roles we're playing and how and what options, once again, goes back to options, we can use to benefit our party, our group, in all of these situations. Now, I wanted to start out with the Templar healer today, because the Templar healer, in my mind, now this was the last healer besides the Warden that I actually created, because the Warden came in later, but this was the last one I made intentionally, because it's a novice build for a player like me, because it has a lot of flexibility. It has so much flexibility that you can do so many things with the Templar, and that's what makes it probably one of the best type of healers for beginner or advanced players, because you can customize the Templar healer to not only your playstyle but what your party needs specifically. And that goes in combination with sets, skills, so on and so forth. What your other healers are running, the Templar healer offers so much flexibility in its kit, in its builds, options, that it's ridiculous. So I wanted to get on here because a lot of new Templars are finding a hard adjustment since Morrowind, because a lot of things have changed. We don't see that major mending in the passive anymore. So we have the minor mending. Now we also have to take into consideration some of those, the global cooldowns versus orbs and shards and so on and so forth. So we'll go ahead and get into it. And the first thing I want to do, now you're going to see that I have Spell Power Cure Worm set on. Now, this is a pretty standard combo, but I do want to discuss a couple of options once again for Templar healers. Now, Templar healers, I'm going to give it up to my man Deltia on this one. Now, me and Deltia have had indifferences in the past, but I find him to be a great resource tool, especially for players. His content is really good, especially his walkthroughs, really. But he makes one really good point that most healers kind of sometimes overlook, and I don't know why people would have ever criticized him about Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a really good set and offset for healers. I'm really looking forward to adapting it into my DK. But if you're a healer, you can, especially Templar, you can use sets like Sanctuary. You can use sets like individual resource management like Lich, Warlock. You can also use other trial sets like the Mending set. You can also use so many different combinations for healing. Now, A lot of times you'll see the combo of Resto Destro. That's not your only option as a healer. You can go Resto Dual, Resto Sword and Board. Now I like Sword and Board. The reason I like the board is I can deflect and reduce range damage. And as a healer, it comes in handy in times of need. I see your comment, and I want to apologize. If it's a good morning, good morning. My phone's dead, so I won't be able to interact with you guys today. But the sorted board's really great for me personally, for my play style, because if I'm not using a configuration where I have to have two statics, and what I mean by two static sets is like Worm and Spell Power Cure are both on all the time, regardless if I do a bar swap. So the applied effect is constantly in flux, right? It's constantly being applied. Now, if I'm using a proc set like Combat's Physician, that I could use that effect on a sword and board as a proc with a static. So I can use a Spell Power Cure static and then proc my Combat's Physician on the back bar, allowing me to use a monster set. That is the flexibility that you have with a lot of healing builds. So that becomes situational, whether or not you're going to go ahead and what kind of content you're playing towards, whether it be PvP, PvE, or trials, bets, so on and so forth. It goes by your individual playstyle and how you want to apply your healing abilities based on sets. Spell Power Cure is a standard set. Though it doesn't necessarily make it the best healing set in the game, it becomes more traditional because when you're in those parties, it offers the buff to you and your other party members, making it a very powerful and a very much sometimes overrated set in your healing options. It's not a necessity by any means. So I don't want players to think I can't be a healer without Spell Power Cure. There are a lot of crafted sets that offer offer just as much power and cost reduction. Eyes of Mara is a prime example. Seducers can offer a lot of resource management as well. Julianos, though it's not one of my favorite sets on a lot of healing builds, has so much flexibility towards the healer that it offers a lot of that spell damage, increasing your healing, giving you critical heals, and then on top of it, you can use hybrid builds for healing. Though I never do it, I'm a type of player, I stay dedicated in my role. But I have seen players do hybrid builds because they know the content, somebody has self-sustain, and they just go ahead and throw down their healing rotation and deal some DPS between that rotation. And Julianus has that flexibility. So it makes it a really great set. So we can't always assume that every set is going to apply to every healer type in every situation. You cannot be presumptuous into thinking that that is always going to be the rule of thumb in a game like this. You have to make those adjustments. So in a game in this setup, I do have the standard. I have the Worm and I have the Spell Power Cure. Now I have Resto Destro. Now on a Templar, this becomes optional, right? Because when we go into our skills, the biggest thing that I am always banking on is my Radiant Aura. Now, I like Radiant Aura better than Ellie Drain. That's me personally. Why? Because the Minor Magic Shield is applied to all the affected targets around my area. It makes it very powerful. Even though it does cost Magicka, I can take this and benefit more because when my groups are using AoE effects and other damaging effects, they're recouping not on just one target, but multiple targets. So it makes it worth the cost. Now, Ellie Drain is great because it's cost-free. So if I have the Destro, I can go in, I can use this Ellie Drain. Once again, it's going to give the Minor Magic Steel on top of the Major Breach. So if a tank doesn't have piercing armor for some reason, we'll just speculate he doesn't, you can apply the Major Breach, and that's another benefit to your party, right? Because it's going to give the magic damage the capability to increase their damage because it's reducing the resistance of your primary target. So this is an option because remember, Radiant Aura is not going to give you that Major Breach. But the nice thing also about the Aura, it's going to give the Minor Fortitude, the Minor Endurance, the Minor Intellect, and that is increasing your recovery for all three of your primary stats. So that is why I really like this. Now, let's talk about the one ability that I personally feel is a necessity in all your primary healers. Restoration staffs abilities apply to every healer role, right? It's what makes this game so diverse, is the capability to use any of these healing effects on any class, regardless of the class, is your primary heals. Now, you can take different morphs for different circumstances, but Healing Springs is pretty a common heal because it offers a hot, it offers restore. The other morph is good, but the only thing is you don't get that restore, but you get a better tick. So it's an option. Once again, it's option. It's going to depend on how well you maintain resources. Regeneration. Once again, you can take the mutagen, you can take the morphs on this, and it becomes very resourceful for healing options, though the Templar already has a purification in its kit, so regeneration might not be towards your playstyle, but if you're PvPing or you're PvEing, this might be something you're looking forward to because the cost is manageable. Combat Prayer. The other morph to me is a better PvP situation, but Combat Prayer is better for PvE, the reason being because you're offering the Minor Berserk. Both heals will offer the resistance buff, but the Minor Berserk is the buff that increases your DPS's damage. We don't want to assume that every class is going to have Minor Berserk, and as a healer, we want to try to not only heal our party, we want to offer utility and we want to offer buffs. That's why we use Spell Power Cure. Why? It's not necessarily the best healing set, but it offers the buff. Also, this is no exception to that rule. The Combat Prayer gives you that capability to further increase your DPS's damage, making their job a lot more efficient, and that's why I stay dedicated in my specific roles. Why? Because I'm not worried about my damage, I'm worried about my DPS's damage. I want to increase their damage. It doesn't matter how much damage I'm dealing, it matters how much I'm healing. That's why I'm a healer. Also, Healing Ward. Now, this is a situational call. You can, pop this in and out depending on your build, your kit. It's not as useful in trial situations. Why? Because you have the other healer and you have a lot more to deal with as far as your rotation. So, majority of the time, you will opt this out. Force Siphon. Force Siphon is not a necessity for the Templar. They already get the minor life steal, magic steal, but you can get the minor life steal. So you can apply the minor lifesteal on the Templar with this ability, take the morph, get the minor magic steal. It's an option. I don't like the 1.5 second cast on the Templar, so I use the aura. It's an instant effect, but it can come in handy in those situations, once again, depending on your personal playstyle, and it does come in for other healers. It is quite a resourceful ability, because if you're using a sword and board and you're not running Resto Destro because you're using a monster set, this ability allows you to slot it and replace that Ellie Drain, and the cost is very manageable at 1,006. That's if you're a Breton. It's going to be slightly higher if you're any other race. Another couple of abilities we're going to take a look at is the abilities within the class itself, especially in the Restoring Light. Now, I don't have the Rune Focus unlocked, even though I have it. You can use it if it's part of your kit. That's fine. I don't use this one in my kit. But Remembrance is a great ultimate for the Templar. Though I don't use it towards the end game because I use other abilities. I do have it on this build. I usually will use my ward, my PvP ward instead. Why? Because I get an extra regen towards it for having support ability slotted. Remembrance is great though, because it's a very powerful heal at a low cost ultimate, but keep in mind you also have the Restoration Staff ultimate, which just is powerful because it applies all the effects at one time. So those are options for you. Breath of Life. A lot of healers and Templars want to go ahead and make this their crutch. Unfortunately though, it does offer a very powerful heal, but its cost makes it, if you keep spamming this, you find yourself bottoming out more frequently. A very good healer will use this as needed and not so dependent upon it. So you want to have it in your kit, especially in trials, especially in vet content, but you don't want to be dependent on it. If you become dependent on it, that means you're not becoming an efficient healer. You want to try to reduce how much you're using your Breath of Life. It's good to have. It's a great ability. No argument there. But you want to try to start seeing if you can heal more effectively without having to say, oh shit, Breath of Life, oh shit, Breath of Life, oh shit, Breath of Life. You want to try to keep this at a minimum. That is going to improve your healing capabilities. And that's what you're trying to set yourself up for even when you do vet content. A lot of people want to say vet content isn't on the level of vet trials. I completely disagree. Because when you go ahead and you're able to efficiently heal vet content at a consistency, that puts you at the plateau of starting vet trials and becoming more proficient in your dedicated role. That's why I really think that vet content becomes very imperative for players in adaptation to, put them at a higher level. We see this in going from high school to college to pros in any sport you play, right? You start at one set level and then you move up. You're at a different part of your game, right? You're not longer at a high school level. You're more competitive now. So now you're going to go ahead, you're going to play college ball. Well, now you're going to play with a lot more people and a bigger audience. So you're going to amp up your game. Same thing goes with your healing. Get up to that vet, become efficient. Now you're ready to move on to the pros. That's your vet hard level content, right? That's what you're setting yourself up for. You're trying to become efficient. You're trying to become a better player in that role, and that's what you are trying to do when you're doing these vet contents and you're doing the hard modes and you're doing the DLCs. You're just trying to become better in your role. Simple. Healing ritual I use as needed. I don't have this morph. I like it when I need it, but it's got 1.2 second cast. But in my rotation, I don't feel like I personally need this ability as often. I do have it. I will get the skill point and will make adjustments if needed. It's personally, once again, a preference call. It's going to be up to you to decide if this is going to be an ability that's going to be more beneficial for you and your rotation, depending on gear, setup, and selection. Radiant Aura, we just went over this. This is one of the ones I really love. And this is the big one for me for the Templar healer is the Retribution, Ritual of Retribution. The Retribution offers the cleanse. This is probably one of the most useful heals that the Templar has besides restoration abilities. It offers a cleanse, it offers a heal, and it also offers damaging effect to enemies within the vicinity. This is simply amazing. It's an amazing ability for the Templar. A lot of people do not utilize this, in my opinion, often enough. Most of the time you'll see Templars, they'll bank more on Breath of Life than getting this down. This simple little heal is very, very, very resourceful in your rotation. You put down the healing springs, you lay down the Ritual of Retribution. All of a sudden, you got 2 hot stacked with a cleanse on top of it. It is simply amazing. It comes in so handy. And now we're going to also talk about utility here, right? So a lot of the times I like the Purifying Light because it offers a little bit of damage in my build. And what it does, it has that magnified copy damage. Comes in handy, but the big thing for me is for tank healing, right? Because when the effect ends, the pool of healing, it drops right there in front of the boss, healing you and nearby allies for 2,788 every 2 seconds. Now that's insignificant compared to most of your other heals, but keep in mind what it does. It's biding you time throughout your rotation. Now, I'm not saying this ability is for everybody, but I like it. In my rotation, I will slot it, I will use it if nobody else is using this ability. If somebody else is using this ability, I'll deslot it and I will slot in another healing or a utility ability as needed. Once again, it's not for everybody. I don't want people to assume that. Now, as a healer, the one thing I never do is I never put on Radiant Impression. A lot of healers want to go ahead and put a finisher because they want to feel like they're contributing to the burn phase. This is the problem though. During your burn phase, especially in vet content, is when the damage starts flying. What ends up happening to new healers in trial situations is they get caught up in the burn throughout the radiant impression. Remember, you're actually using a damaging ability that's channeled, right? This will disrupt your healing rotation. If a damage spike happens and a mechanic happens during its burn phase, you're going to have a wipe. Now, it's true you can backbar out of it. So you can backbar swap out of your radiant impression during the channel. You can do that. But you get caught throwing this at the wrong time as a healer, your party's done. So that's why I steer away from it. Not saying everybody should, but as a healer, once again, my primary role is healing, right? So I'm not going to risk it. I just want to keep increasing my DPS's damage, get through those mechanics, and keep the party going as they're going through the burn phase, right? So also we're going to take a look, and this is the big one here, is the luminous shards. Now, I use the luminous, so I don't use the other one anymore. The reason being, they both give the recovery on the shard, but the luminous will also give additional. So that's why I use this one. A lot of the time, Templars want to use the orbs and the Undaunted passive, which is fine. You can do that. Mine's unlocked, but I don't have it selected right now. Why? Because I use shards. Remember, shards and orbs have the same global cooldown. Unless you're using the healing orbs for ranged healing, it's not really benefiting your party for a utility because they have the same global cooldown, right? So if somebody picks up a shard, nobody's going to be able to synergize with the orb. It becomes almost mute. Now, if I want to use the healing orb and I'm banking on that for utility, I will replace my shards with this. Keep in mind, they both offer the same amount of restore on the initial hit. The only difference of it is the healing orb isn't going to give the secondary charge of the 1003 like the luminous does. It's like 1003, I want to say, right? 1009. So it's not going to offer the 1009. Once again, that becomes a preference call. For me personally, you might want to go ahead and do it if that's your playstyle, but I find it wasteful. I find it wasteful to try to do something like that. That's my personal call. Also, keep in mind, we use the war horn in a lot of trial or vet runs. The reason being, once again, I'm a healer. I want to increase my party's damage. This is why majority of healers will always slot this in those situations, because it increases all their max stats, plus they get that major force, which is going to increase their critical damage. Now remember, the rearming trap offers the minor, but this applies the major. So that stacked effect, especially for your stand builds, is definitely going to boost up considerably. Now, if you're also using a set like Twilight's Remedy, Magicka users can sink in, synergize, get the minor force, and double stack that as well. Even though they can use the rearming trap, Magicka users can, it costs stamina. And a lot of times during mechanics, you're going to find yourself blocking, and Magicka users aren't always going to have that stamina if they're using abilities like rearming trap. So keep that in mind as well. So what I also want to do today is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick up the dailies, and we're going to do a couple runs, and I'm going to just show you guys simple rotation, how I do things. It's been a while since I've been on this tune, so I know none of these are the dailies. So, you know, the biggest thing for me, guys, is I feel like there are so many things you can do as a healer. Different sets, different combinations, especially with Templar. Templar, like I said, is so flexible. It really is. If you don't have your spell power cure, don't panic. Do not panic. Try to get, you know, something like your prayer set or your sanctuary set or your warlock set. Whatever set that you're going to find resourceful until you acquire, right? That's the big thing, is acquiring those pieces. Things take time. Don't rush content trying to be the best that you can be based on gear. Gear doesn't make the player. The player who knows their class defines the sets, right? That's how it goes. Okay, so 2 and 2. Crypt and... right? Yeah. Crypt of Hearts 2... Fungal Grotto 2. We'll do Crypt of Hearts 2 real quick. Nice thing also about healers. Now, this is another thing I like about healers. They are needed. Tanks and healers will always always get primary queue times because there's not a lot of players who want to play them. So if you're a player who wants to play content, don't shy away from playing a healer or a tank. Once again, you define your experience in this game, right? So if you're a player who wants to play DPS, that's fine. But, you know, if you want to play content, you're going to get faster response in healing and tank. It's just the way it is because there's not as many. But as a tank or a healer, you can make your build more fun. You can, you know, adapt to your play style and make that role fun. That's why I like playing different healers. That's why I like to play the Nightblade. That's why I like to play with the Sorcerer healer. That's why I like to play with the DK healer. I like them because it offers something different. It's still efficient. It still works in a different way. So even if you have restoration staff abilities and you apply it to the other healers, the secondary effects that the class abilities offer is how the class plays differently in that role. So not all the healers play the same just because they have restoration staff abilities. Not every tank plays the same just because they have a sword and board. They are all defined by their abilities and sets, or what they're needing. That's what defines each class in that role. So I always tell people, don't believe people when they say this is more efficient. That's more efficient for them because it's the only thing that they've delved into in the game, right? You can explore. You can do so much. This is Elder Scrolls. This is Elder Scrolls universe. Elder Scrolls has always been about you. How you want to play it. How you want to adapt to it. That's what's made Elder Scrolls so popular in the RPG community. Out of all the other games, they've always restricted their players, right? And you can see that in other games. You pick up another game, you play another RPG, you're restricted, you're limited. In this game, essentially, you're not. You're only limited by what you deem is worthy or efficient. For example, we have a lot of hybrid sets out there in this game. I feel like there's better ways to adapt it, but for you, if you're going to play a certain amount of content and you want to try to hybrid a build, you have the option. So who am I to say how you should play? At the end of the day, if you can get through the content and you can do it, that's what's important. It's, once again, how you want to, play this game. My daughter, she literally said, I'm not playing that game because it's an MMO. It's not Elder Scrolls. And I'm like, you don't have to play this as an MMO. The devs put content in there for single player application. So if I wanted to play Morrowind in the essence of just content like a traditional RPG, this game allows me to do that. The DLCs have quest lines. They have individual delves. They have things that I can craft and explore as a solo player. I don't have to always be engaged with my community. Same thing with PvP. A lot of PvEers don't like to PvP. Some PvPers don't like to PvE. So it becomes how you play this game. And that's one thing that makes Elder Scrolls so diverse in the MMO community. It's not one directional. It's not linear. It is exactly how you want to play your game. This is why out of all the MMOs that I played throughout all my years, Elder Scrolls has something special about it. The community is great. I mean, we can have toxic players. That's true. I can even be toxic at times. I'm not going to say I'm not. I'm going to requeue this. It should have already gotten a queue. The players can be toxic, even me. But majority of the time you find the community engaged, right? Regardless, they're always engaged. We find helpful resources everywhere. My fellow content creators, regardless of whether or not I agree with my fellow content creators, they're there. They're putting out information. They're putting out resourceful information for you so you can play to the best of your ability. That's what they do. That's what we do here. We love the games that much that we dedicate our time and our effort to provide the content for our viewers. Because at the end of the day, we want it to be about you. We want you to enjoy this game the way you want. You know, I'm not going to be one of these players who are ever going to dictate, you know, that this is the only way. I don't want players to believe that. The devs do such a great job. You know, this weekend was crazy. It's been nuts, but it is what it is. Things happen. But at the end of the day, I honestly believe ZeniMax has probably one of the best staffs in MMO community. They're engaged. They love the game. They love their product. They play their product. Not every dev can literally say, I love my job. And I imagine, as stressful as it can get over there for the devs, I can honestly imagine that most of them love their job. And they should. They should. At the end of the day, these guys should be so pumped. This game's come so far. It's got so much to go. I'll just frig it. I'll queue Fungal Grotto 2 also. Dang. I was hoping I'd just get that one. I'm trying here, I promise. It's probably a shortage of tank day or something. Now there's a couple of things that I always feel like the game can make some sort of adjustments, but then we have to take into consideration how much is on the dev's plate. So I'm always kind of a person who takes that in consideration. The devs have a workload. It's a job. At the end of the day, they're doing a job. It make no doubt about it. You know, these guys, and I think that's why, as much I can get frustrated just like everybody else. Matter of fact, I probably get more frustrated. And that's one thing I loved about this viewer who pointed it out, because I was a lot worse, actually, before I came to this game. Like I said, I was a former elitist. I've been playing MMOs for a long time. I was in multiple raid guilds and multiple games, and we done so much content, progression guilds, so on and so forth. And I always was one who was just like, it will be this way. It will. And I was that dick. And coming in here, I just felt like, wow, okay, this is so different. Like Rift. I loved Rift because I was able to play all these roles with one class. But I had to have every class so I could play every role. So I had to have all these souls, I had to have all these builds, and I loved it. Loved Rift for that. And no other game until I came here, or you could say the same thing about Final Fantasy, but no other games could do that. They were all limited. And then coming in Elder Scrolls, I didn't like the class thing, but I was like, okay, class, ooh. But then I came in, I was like, okay, they still made it Elder Scrolls, but they put classes in it. So technically I can play any role as this class. Okay, I see what they did. They put a twist to it. So, and that's why I loved it. I was like, okay, great, perfect. Let's roll. Let's rock. Let's do it. I'm ready. And that's what I wanted to do. Just in completely try put my hands in everything and anything that I possibly could without feeling the need to be elite or the need to be the best. And that's why I picked console as my starting platform. Walk away from the add-ons, walk away from the misconceptions, walk away from PC players are more open-minded. A majority of the time it is. You know, it's a lot easier on PC platform. I will admit this because of add-ons and stuff. But console, when you get a hand for console play in this game, you become a better player because you don't have all those little, tools at your disposal. You don't have all those like, oh my gosh, look, there's a Nightblade using Myots and there's a Nightblade detection around or something. I won't use Myots anyways, but because we don't have those here. You have to be on your toes at all times. You have to be, understanding of how your damage and your rotation goes. You have to be. You become more aware, and each player adapting to their own play style will become a better player in their their role. So it's a time thing. It's not about like trying to bum rush everything, trying to speed up, trying to be like, oh, I have this set, I have that set. Now I'm just going to Skyreach and I'm maximizing my CP points so I can do end game content. To me, you're cheating yourself when you do those things. Why? Because when you come to a player who's been doing it for the last 2 years consecutively, and he knows that class inside and out because that's the only class he plays, you are going to be surprised how more efficient that player is because he knows what abilities he can swap in and out. He becomes way more, fluent in that class. So for me, I play all these classes because I put a lot of time and dedication in understanding how each class plays in that role. I don't necessarily have the best output of this or the best of that or the best of anything. I want to be as good as I can be with the time that I have on each character. So is somebody with 2 years experience on a Samsork going to be better than me on a Samsork? We could have literally the same build, piece by piece, the same layout, designed exactly. But the guy with 2 years experience with just that character versus my experience with my Samsork, I'm going to put my money on the other guy. Why? Because he's dedicated. He knows that class inside and out. He knows his rotation. He's been doing it for so long that literally, despite point by point, spec by spec, he's going to have it more down pat. And that's a time thing. It's vested time. It's just what it is. So I'm still not getting a queue. We'll queue normals even. I hate queuing normals. But for some reason, I'm not getting any queue. I don't know what's up. I'm like, this shouldn't be this hard. This should not be this hard. I should already have a queue. If I queue in normal, it's going to be... I'll cry. I did. No. It's so sad. But it'll serve the purpose of this video. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. I love the atmosphere here too. Just like Q, DPS. We'll see. Hopefully I don't get an endless screen loading in. Usually hasn't been doing it, trying to get in. Normal again. Going to reapply my food buff. Okay, 1 second. Okay, don't need to be in there. Okay, 6, 2, and what? We all in bet. We don't have a oh no, we have a tank. Okay, I'm just going to go over the basics, rotation, things like that, how I play the Templar. Kind of serves its purpose. Once again, you want to try to become better. That's just kind of the way you go. Okay. So first thing I'm always doing is sometimes I'll shield, get that AoE down, and then throw the buff. Next thing also I want to go ahead and do, throw the aura. Messed up on that side, and then start weaving. Now, when you see the aura, you'll see everything around me affected by it. This really helps out my DPS, Magicka especially. Then every 10 seconds or so, I'm throwing out a shard. Remember, we have a cooldown on shards, so I don't want to spam it. It's just wasting Magicka. Get down these AoE heals. Recoup. On boss, I'll throw that, but sometimes I'll just throw it on a mob. Okay.
Do you louts think you're going to save my
Now usually I'll play to the back, start buffing up my teammates right before an encounter with the combat prayer. Get that aura. I always want that aura. I want that magic steal in as quick as possible. When I need it, hit that breath of life, get the hot down, weave it up. Reapply the buff, throw the shard. Now healing rotation is going to be more like you got to eyeball it a lot of times. It's not as simple as, well, it's DPS rotation isn't simple, but a DPS rotation is consistent. Healing rotations based on what you're seeing drop off, what needs to be applied. It's more finicky. Okay, I'm going to roll out. Get these down. Throw out the shard. Now we're going to blow the war horn. See my DPS? Get that combat prayer up during the war horn rotation. Very important. Throw down that purify. Get them to copy it. That healing pool will drop. That gives me a little bit of cushion. Reapply it. Reapply. Reapply. Throw down the shard. Got to get within range. Get the shard down. Weave up. Get the AoEs. Get the ground effect. Get behind my deeps. Reapply. Get that magic steal back up. Okay. Make sure everybody gets that buff.
This doesn't concern you, outsider. Leave those souls. Kill the intruders.
Okay, usually I'll do the mark right here, right from the grip. Get behind my deeps. Apply. Get that up again. Play attention to mechanics. Just want to have breath of life when needed. Get that AoE down now. Reapply the other effect. Get up to the boss. Put the steel on it. I'm webbed. Reapply. Get that effect down. Now there'll be a couple times you'll see that I'm human. That might lapse. You want to try to get better at it. Anytime, pay attention to the icon. See, I have a 17-second application. When it starts getting down to about 3 seconds, reapply. Try to get it down as fluent as possible. But you don't need Ellie Drain. You don't need it. That's one best thing about Templar. Other healers, questionable. If you want to use it on Templar, you can. Not saying you can't. But, you know, it's all going to be about resource management, and try not to spam anything. Spamming isn't making you a better healer. No.
I'll open the lock on the other side. Study just a bit. This way. Whatever he keeps in here now, it's well guarded.
Out! The lot of you! You've no right to enter!
Okay, I already know Undead's coming. Gonna throw this down. Hit them all with the aura.
This is our bedroom. We used to store our adventuring relics here. It's warded. Quite a defense for such a
Once
small
again,
room.
get my rotation down. That dude didn't get the buff. I'll reapply if necessary. Now I'm gonna apply it. Reapply. Just see nobody picked it up. Got a couple seconds. Nobody picks it up. That's fine. Reapply. Reapply. Pretty much how we do it. Normal. It is normal. Sometimes there's chests back here. Up, right here.
My husband's journal mentions a ritual that brought the Daedra, performed out in the rain. Only a few courtyards on the grounds, so let's seek them out.
You're a tenacious lot. If you insist, I'll be happy to feed you to the blade.
Now, races. Let's talk about races real quick. Lot of, sorry, once again, sorry I can't see your comment. My phone's dead. It's charging. Typically I'd be looking at my phone, but... okay, so let's talk about races. Templar, a lot of flexibility. You can go Argonian, which is great. Argonian is really good. Breton, I'm a Breton on this. I really like Breton for the cost reduction. So there's not one specific race that's better than the other. I've seen a couple people go with the high elf too, just because later on if they want to go with that damage type, they can do that. So that's an option with it as well. So I don't know about Dunmer. You know, that's questionable. Because people have DPS builds with Templars and Dunmer, so you can't say you can't do it. So definitely, you know, flexible. So yeah, definitely a lot of flexibility. Argonian is probably really popular with Templar. I like the Breton. That's kind of me personally. Just something I'm accustomed to. And other healer roles, same thing. You know, it's all going to be based on gear and play performance. You know, once again, Argonian gets that nice healing boost, right? Breton, though, gets cost reduction. High elves have max, you know? It's going to be based on your play style more and more. Now notice, anytime I'm on top of a mob, I'm going to hit that magic steel. Leviathan dagger. Okay. Didn't get to see the trait. Once again, let my DPS go in front of me. I want to buff them up.
Just the same. Have they
come looking for the blade, brother? How mortal of them!
Keep that buff up. Throw the shards as needed.
The mortals they want. Let's show them how wrong they are.
Now you notice I won't use Healing Ward or Breath of Life unless it's necessary. Warhorn once again. Get out that shard. Usually weave up in between. Where I'll come in, I'll make a couple of alterations in my rotation just so I can get my burst heal out. Get that buff applied. Make sure I'm weaving in, so I'm maintaining resources. That drain back up. Some shielding out there. Now usually if you drop down too low, that's when you want to pop the potion, but it was almost dead, so I already knew I had it. So potion rotation is going to be based on your visual. Usually I'd say anywhere around 30% is when I pop a potion, because I'm going to get that recovery boost. I don't want to drop really too low below that point as a healer. So, and especially in Argonian, you want to use potion rotation more frequently, because potion rotation is very, very important, especially with Argonian healers. You'll see it. Like, I really try not to use Breath of Life as much as possible. Just in between. Get that combat prayer up. I try to get combat prayer rotation as frequent as possible. Remember, I got a pretty good, you know, I got a good 8 seconds on that combat prayer. You know, around 8 seconds. So I want to get that minor berserk applied frequently. You're going to slip up, you're going to mess up a couple times, you're not going to have it up 100% of the time. The more frequent your uptime is, the better off you are. Okay. Now you're going to see me go ahead, cap them off. Usually I play to the back. Get that Warhorn rotation now. Keep up that combat prayer. It can happen. Trying to find my dead party members. All right.
The Daedra are coming through, and where Nuraine is waiting. We'll meet on the other side. Nuraine, cease this madness. My friends have defeated your horde. Lay down your blade.
You so love the sound of your own voice. Couldn't you see the blade wanted you here all along?
The blade.
He's sick.
I can hear the whispers from it. By the divines, so many lives.
The blade hungers for you, for the connection between us, and I give it gladly. Think that blade is yours to touch? It has a master, and he is me. My wife has been dealt.
Now he's hard to hit, but so I just gradually go in and then pull out. Same thing when his teleport, block. The burst healing is definitely going to come in handy. Once again, gonna roll out, top him off, try to get a shard in there really quick.
Your deaths are assured. Eat their flesh. Try my patience.
Warhorn. Get in, get that combat prayer down, reapply.
This will end you.
Of course, it's me. No, no. Did I make it? Oh my god. It's on normal. Okay, and that's pretty much about it. It is on normal, but you kind of get the principle. Like, there are a lot of options, you know. There's like things I can put in and out. I didn't use Healing Ward hardly at all. You'll notice that Breath of Life wasn't being spammed. You know, I want to use my hots. I want to lay down hot rotation and use my burst healing as a necessity. I want to keep applying the buffs. I want to depend on proper rotation and applied effects. The more you get all of these things down, the better healer you're going to become. And as a healer, depending on the healer that you're playing, is where you're going to have to decide. Like Warden, you have to be more line of sight. You have to adjust accordingly. Templar healers are a little bit more forgiving in that essence. But, you know, you have to be like, okay, how much radius do I need? Do I play to the back? Do I play to the mid? Do I go ahead? Because like DK healer kind of plays more mid-range. Nightblade healer has to play more up front. You start off in the back, but you have to move more up front in Nightblade healing, because Nightblade healing is more combatant. You shine more as a Nightblade, and when you're hitting siphons and you're hitting those rotations a lot more frequently. So each healer does definitely play different, and that's very important in understanding that aspect. And when you can, you just become that much better. So I'm always just encouraging you guys, you know, don't necessarily believe everything is set in stone, even as a healer. Like a lot of times people will be like, nothing's changed with healing. Yes and no. As far as like sets go, there are always going to be more preferred sets. But like the mending set, I like it, but to me it's a situational set, right? I think Sanctuary is great. I think Twilight Remedy is great. I think crafted sets for healing is great. So, especially for the players who haven't obtained their Spell Power Cure. If I take a look at I forget what set it is, that it offers more to your restoration staff heals. That's a lot more powerful than spell power cure when everything's traded in your ideal traits. Problem of it is you're going to sacrifice that offset, because why? Because you're buffing your party members with spell power cure, and the buff does apply to you and it will increase your healing, but you're sacrificing your healing capabilities to offer more damage. If more damage is applied, the less time you have to spend healing, ideally. So that's what you're trying to accomplish when you're playing these roles. So keep in mind, you don't need Ellie Drain. Remember, it's great, it's cost free, you can go ahead and use it, but it's a single target application. Aura applies in a radius. It's a lot more resourceful and dominant for the Templar healer. That's what the Templar healer brings to the table. Every healer brings something different. Every class brings a different mechanic or contribution to party members. Don't also believe that Templars are better healers. For God's sakes, don't do that. I play every healer. This is kind of my niche in this game. I'm not trying to play bragging rights or anything, but most people know me as the healer, whatever, in this game. DK healer is my favorite healer. I play that in trials. If I have to heal on a trial, I usually am grabbing the DK. I like Nightblade healing better, but the DK has so much mitigation, and paired with a Templar, a strong Templar or a strong Warden, DK definitely is a strength to the party as a healer. So I always tell people, don't necessarily get in the mindset that it has to be this way or that way. It's going to be combinations. It's going to be the general makeup of your party. And when you put all those pieces together and you become more efficient in that role as that class, in that role, you're going to be better, right? But the problem of it is you're going to have to surround yourself with people who play with you consistently if you're going to get into trial levels, right? Or people are going to have to be familiar with you as a player, as in that role. So, lend yourself to people. Open yourself up, try to be positive, try to, offer and take criticism. Part of it is being humble. Don't be too proud of anything. When you can take some criticism, you can adjust those builds towards that player's play style. So it's always not going to be a problem with you. It's going to be a problem with how you apply that effect to that player on said. So most of the time you need a cohesion. You have to have some sort of, connection with players to get through some of the harder content. And when you can do that efficiently, you can accomplish a lot more together as a team or a unit. So I would encourage all those players, don't take anything personal. If it becomes personal, just remove yourself from the situation. For me, it's not so easy. I am a content creator. I do pug. I represent the pug life. Why? Because I just want to show capability of what you can do in any circumstance. So sometimes I'd let the things get the best of me. And yes, I'm a former elitist, and I get things. I get pissed off quite easy. But I'm an old man. Forgive me. Have patience with me. I am human. I do have my flaws, but I thank you guys every day, and I want to thank that special viewer for putting me in my place and doing it in such a way that it really opened my eyes. Thank you so much. I hope this video helps all those healers out there, especially those Templars trying to adjust since Morrowind. Don't worry. Things change, but you'll be all right. All right? This is Mr. Craven. This is CSO Daily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.